The message came without warning, a desperate plea that rippled across the stars. Admiral James Reed stared at the holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow as he read the transmission for the fourth time. "They're asking for our help," he said, his voice barely audible in the silence of Earth's Central Command. "After everything." General Lisa Torres stood beside him, her expression unreadable. 3 centuries of isolation, of being treated like the galaxy's unpredictable children, and now they want our help. The Galactic Confederation had discovered humanity 80 years ago, deemed them too volatile, and effectively quarantined Earth and its colonies within the Sol system. Trade was minimal, cultural exchange forbidden. Humans were considered unpredictable, dangerous, a species whose emotions ran too hot, whose decisions defied the logical frameworks that guided the older races. Now the Confederation was under attack. "The Void Harvesters," Reed continued, scanning the message. "No details on what they are, but they've already consumed 4 systems. The Confederation's defenses are failing." "And they think we can help?" Torres asked. "What could we possibly offer that their advanced technology can't?" The answer lay in the final line of the message. "We need what we feared in you." President Marcus Williams called an emergency session of the Global Council. Representatives from all Earth nations and colony worlds gathered virtually, their faces tense with uncertainty. "We were deemed too unpredictable, too emotional, too human," Williams addressed the assembly. "Now they need those very qualities." Debates raged for hours. Some argued for ignoring the plea, retribution for decades of isolation. Others saw opportunity. Rescue the Confederation in exchange for full acceptance into galactic society. Dr. Emma Wilson, Earth's leading xenobiologist, finally spoke. "The Confederation species evolved in stable environments. Their societies value order, predictability. They've never faced extinction-level threats. They don't understand how to fight when logic says there's no chance of victory. But humans do," Reed added. "Our entire history is fighting against impossible odds." The decision came in the early morning hours. Humanity would answer the call. Operation Prometheus was assembled in 12 days, a fleet of 317 ships carrying Earth's finest, soldiers, scientists, and diplomats. Their mission wasn't just to save the Confederation, but to prove humanity's worth. As the fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Reed addressed the crews. "They fear what we are, creative, unpredictable, stubborn to the point of madness. They fear our capacity for violence and our willingness to sacrifice. Today we show them that these qualities can save, as well as destroy." The jump gates opened, technology provided reluctantly by the Confederation for this desperate mission. The human fleet surged forward into the unknown. On the bridge of the flagship Resilience, Reed watched the blue swirl of hyperspace envelop them. Beside him, Dr. Wilson studied the data packet containing everything the Confederation knew about the Void Harvesters. "It's not much to go on," she said. "It never is," Reed replied. "But that's always been humanity's strength. We make decisions. With incomplete information, we improvise, we adapt, and sometimes we succeed where logic says we should fail," Wilson finished. Reed nodded, his eyes fixed on the streaming lights of hyperspace. Humanity had been isolated, underestimated, and dismissed by the galaxy's elder races. Now, they would show the Confederation exactly what humans could do when called upon in desperation. The fate of the galaxy would rest on humanity's most primal qualities, the very reasons they had been feared and shunned. First contact with the Void Harvesters came sooner than expected. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Rigel system to find a scene of devastation. What had once been a thriving Confederation outpost was now a graveyard of shattered ships and broken space stations, and among the wreckage moved something. "Magnify," Admiral Reed ordered. The view screen focused on an object that defied conventional description. It wasn't a ship, not exactly. It appeared more organic than mechanical, yet it wasn't quite alive either. A shifting mass of darkness roughly cylindrical in shape, approximately 2 kilometers long. "It's absorbing the debris," Lieutenant Tom Franklin reported, his voice tight with disbelief. The matter is simply vanishing into its surface. Dr. Wilson leaned forward. Energy readings suggest it's converting matter directly into energy. Incredibly efficient. No waste products. Before Reed could respond, a transmission cut through on the emergency channel. A Confederation cruiser, the last survivor of the Rigel Defense Force, was limping away from the encounter, its hull breached in multiple places. The alien captain appeared on screen, a Tellurian humanoid but with metallic blue skin and large compound eyes. Human vessel, this is Captain Nix of the Confederation. You must retreat immediately. Standard weapons are ineffective against the Harvester. Reed straightened. Captain Nix, this is Admiral Reed of Earth. We're here to help. Those compound eyes widened slightly. You cannot help. Your technology is inferior to ours, and we have already failed. Perhaps, Reed said calmly, but we might have advantages you don't. What can you tell us about this enemy? The information Nix provided was grim. The Void Harvesters had appeared 6 months ago from the direction of the Galactic Core. They consumed everything in their path. Planets, ships, even stars eventually. Conventional energy weapons were absorbed. Physical projectiles vanished without impact. The Confederation's most powerful weapons had at best temporarily repelled them. As they spoke, the Harvester changed course, moving toward the damaged Confederation ship with terrible purpose. It's detected your power core, Wilson realized. It's drawn to energy sources. Reed made a split-second decision. Captain Nix, power down all systems except life support. Lieutenant Franklin, prepare a nuclear warhead. No detonator, just the raw material. Sir? Franklin questioned. They consume matter and energy, Reed explained. Let's see what happens when they consume unstable matter designed to undergo nuclear fission. The plan came together quickly. The human ship launched the warhead toward the Harvester, while simultaneously firing its engines at full power in the opposite direction, creating a more tempting target to distract the entity. The strategy worked. The Harvester changed course, ignoring the powered-down Confederation ship and the small, seemingly insignificant nuclear payload drifting toward it. Instead, it pursued the Resilience, accelerating with frightening speed. Steady, Reed commanded as the distance closed. Let it get close to the warhead. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as the Harvester approached the nuclear device. When it was mere meters away, the creature's surface rippled, extending a tendril that enveloped the warhead, drawing it into its mass. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Harvester convulsed. Its smooth surface bulged and distorted. Light erupted from within as the nuclear material, absorbed into its energy conversion systems, underwent uncontrolled fission. The explosion ripped through the Harvester from within, tearing it apart in a spectacular eruption of light and radiation. When the sensors cleared, only fragments remained, quickly dispersing. On the bridge, the silence was profound. It worked, Franklin finally said, disbelief evident in his voice. Reed nodded slowly. We found a weakness. They can't process all forms of energy safely. He turned to communications. Contact the fleet and get that Confederation ship over. Here. We need to compare notes. Captain Nix's face reappeared on screen, those alien features displaying what Reed recognized as shock. Why did you think that would work? Reed allowed himself a small smile. Human intuition, Captain. Sometimes you have to try the illogical. Word of the human victory spread through Confederation channels with unprecedented speed. What the combined might of the galaxy's elder races couldn't accomplish, a single human ship had managed in minutes. The implications were staggering. On the Resilience, Admiral Reed met with the first official Confederation delegation, representatives from 7 species, all watching the humans with a mixture of hope and lingering suspicion. Your solution was unorthodox, said Delegate Orlin, a tall, willowy being with crystalline features that caught the light as he spoke. Using the enemy's strength against it is not a strategy our military doctrine includes. It's one of humanity's oldest tactical principles, Reed replied, dating back to ancient Earth martial arts. The stronger opponent can be defeated by redirecting their own force. The meeting continued for hours. The Confederation shared everything they knew about the Harvesters, which wasn't much. The creatures had appeared suddenly and attacked without communication or apparent motive beyond consumption. All attempts at contact had failed. Dr. Wilson compiled the data, working with Confederation scientists to build a clearer picture. They're not a natural evolution, she concluded after analyzing tissue samples collected from the destroyed harvester. They show signs of design, a created species or possibly a technology that evolved beyond its creator's intent. The temporary alliance settled into an uneasy rhythm. Human ships were dispatched to join Confederation defense fleets, teaching them guerrilla tactics and the nuclear disruption technique. But for every harvester they destroyed, 3 more seemed to appear. 2 weeks into the campaign, the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Major Alan Parker, a communications specialist, noticed a pattern in the background radiation emitted during harvester attacks. It's not random, he explained, pointing to the wavelength analysis. There's a pattern here, almost like a language. They're communicating? Reed asked. Not exactly. I think it's more like code. Operating instructions. Parker leaned forward, his eyes bright with discovery. What if they're not individual entities but nodes in a network? What if somewhere there's a central command sending instructions? The theory galvanized both human and Confederation scientists. Working together, they traced the signals back toward the galactic core, to a region known in Confederation charts as the Dark Zone, an area rich in black holes and stellar remnants that had never been properly explored. Reed presented a bold plan to the Joint Command. A small elite force would penetrate the Dark Zone, locate the source of the Harvester commands, and destroy it. Meanwhile, the main fleet would continue defensive operations to protect populated systems. This is suicide, Delegate Orlin objected. The Dark Zone is navigational chaos. No ship has ever returned from deep exploration there. Then we'll be the first, Reed said simply. The mission team assembled quickly. 3 human ships and 2 Confederation vessels with the most advanced sensors. Dr. Wilson joined as scientific lead, her expertise in xenobiology deemed essential. The strike team prepared to depart. Reed addressed them on a secure channel. This mission goes beyond saving lives or proving humanity's worth. We're potentially facing a technological intelligence unlike anything encountered before. Stay unpredictable, trust your instincts, and remember, where logic fails, human intuition may succeed. The 5 ships slipped away from the main fleet, accelerating toward the dark heart of the galaxy. Behind them, battle continued to rage across a dozen systems as the combined forces fought desperately to hold the line. On the Resilience, Dr. Wilson studied the navigational charts for the Dark Zone. The gravimetric distortions are going to make conventional navigation impossible, she noted. We'll be flying blind for much of this. Then we'll do what humans have always done, Reed replied. We'll feel our way forward in the dark, one step at a time. The ships entered the periphery of the Dark Zone, immediately buffeted by gravitational waves that threatened to tear them apart. Conventional sensors became unreliable. Communications with the main fleet deteriorated to brief, static-filled bursts. We're on our own now, Reed observed as the last coherent transmission from command faded into noise. Ahead lay the unknown, and potentially, the salvation of the galaxy. The Dark Zone defied all expectations. What had appeared on charts as empty space was in fact teeming with anomalies. Microscopic black holes, pockets of warped space-time, and strange radiation fields that played havoc with ship systems. 2 days into their journey, they lost the first ship. The Confederation vessel Starlight ventured too close to what seemed like a small gravitational distortion. In seconds, it stretched and compressed like an image in a funhouse mirror before vanishing completely. Micro-black hole, the Confederation, Science Officer Trell explained grimly. Nearly impossible to detect until you're in its event horizon. The remaining 4 ships tightened formation, sharing sensor data in real time to navigate the treacherous region. Progress slowed to a crawl. On the 6th day, they detected something extraordinary, a massive structure floating in a relatively stable pocket of space. It resembled an enormous crystalline web, spanning at least 20 kilometers, with a pulsing core that emitted precisely the same radiation signature they'd detected from the harvesters. "We found it," Dr. Wilson whispered. "The command node." Scans revealed the structure was ancient, perhaps millions of years old, yet still active. At regular intervals, signals pulsed outward from its core, traveling faster than light through the quantum fabric of space itself. "It's giving instructions to the harvesters," Major Parker confirmed. "But there's something else. These aren't just commands. There's data flowing back as well. The harvesters are feeding information to this structure." Reed ordered the ships to maintain distance while they developed a plan. The immediate impulse, to destroy the structure with nuclear weapons, was tempered by uncertainty. What if destroying it triggered a failsafe that activated all harvesters simultaneously? What if this was merely one node of many? Dr. Wilson proposed an alternative. "We need to understand what this is before we destroy it. I want to go inside." Her suggestion met immediate resistance, particularly from the Confederation officers. "It's too dangerous," Trell argued. "We should retreat and report our findings." "And then what?" Wilson countered. "Spend months analyzing from a distance while more worlds die? No. We need answers now." After heated debate, a compromise emerged. A small team would approach the structure in a shuttle equipped with minimal electronics to avoid detection. They would attempt to collect samples and, if possible, access whatever passed for a control system. The team consisted of Dr. Wilson, Major Parker, and 2 specialists, 1 human, 1 Confederation. As their shuttle departed the Resilience, Reed's final instructions were simple. "Learn what you can, but be prepared to destroy it if necessary. We'll be watching." The approach was nerve-wracking. The shuttle drifted slowly, using minimal power, appearing to all sensors like just another piece of space debris. As they drew closer, the true scale of the crystalline web became apparent. It wasn't solid but composed of millions of intricate filaments that shifted and realigned continuously. "It's beautiful," whispered Kren, the Confederation specialist. "Like nothing we've ever encountered." They located what appeared to be an opening, a region where the filaments were less dense. The shuttle slipped inside with thrusters barely firing. Once within the structure's outer layer, they made a startling discovery. "These aren't crystals," Dr. Wilson realized, studying a filament through a microscope. "They're data storage, molecular-level quantum memory." Parker's analysis confirmed her suspicion. This entire structure is essentially a massive computer. The harvesters are its collection system, gathering matter, energy, and information from across the galaxy and feeding it back here. "But for what purpose?" Kren asked. The answer came when they reached the core. At the center of the web floated a sphere of perfect darkness, not a black hole, but something that absorbed all light nonetheless. Around it, the data filaments converged, feeding information directly into this central void. As they watched, the sphere pulsed, and for a brief moment, something like an image formed on its surface. A galaxy, but not their own. A window to somewhere else. Wilson's voice shook slightly. "It's not a weapon system, it's a doorway. The harvesters are gathering data for whatever's on the other side." A reconnaissance mission, Parker realized. "They're mapping our galaxy for invasion." The implications were clear and terrifying. The harvesters weren't the threat. They were merely the scouts for something far worse that waited beyond that dark portal. As they prepared to retreat with this critical information, the structure suddenly came alive around them. Filaments began moving with purpose, converging on the shuttle. "They had been detected. Get us out of here," Wilson shouted as crystalline tendrils wrapped around the shuttle's hull, penetrating the outer layers. The engines fired at maximum thrust, tearing them free of the grasping filaments, but severely damaging the shuttle in the process. As they tumbled away from the structure. Parker managed to stabilize their flight enough to limp back toward the waiting ships. Behind them, the massive web began to pulse with increased energy. The doorway was opening wider. The damaged shuttle barely made it back to the Resilience. As the team stumbled onto the deck, Dr. Wilson's face was ashen. "We need to destroy it now," she said without preamble. "It's activating." Reed didn't waste time with questions. He ordered all ships to prepare their nuclear payloads, everything they had. The plan was simple but desperate. Saturate the crystalline structure with enough firepower to completely obliterate it. As weapons were readied, Wilson and Parker briefed the commanders on what they'd discovered. The revelation that the harvesters were merely scouts for something worse sent a chill through the room. "The void beyond that portal," Wilson explained. "I caught just a glimpse, but what I saw wasn't natural. It was engineered. An artificial dimension, perhaps, housing something that views our galaxy as a resource to be harvested." The Confederation science officer, Trell, had been quietly analyzing the shuttle's sensor data. "The energy readings from the portal are increasing exponentially," he reported. "Whatever's coming through, it's coming soon." Reed made the call. "Launch all warheads, target the core." 26 nuclear missiles streaked toward the crystalline web. At the last moment, filaments extended outward like defensive tentacles, intercepting several missiles and absorbing them. But enough got through. The explosions rippled across the structure, shattering filaments and sending shockwaves toward the core. For a moment, it seemed to work. The web convulsed, sections going dark as the chain reaction spread. Then, impossibly, it began to reconstitute itself, broken filaments reaching toward each other, reconnecting. "It's self-repairing," Parker said in disbelief. Reed ordered a second volley, but before the missiles could be launched, the structure's core pulsed with blinding intensity. A beam of pure darkness shot outward, cutting through space itself and striking one of the human ships. The vessel didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist, as though erased from reality. "Fall back," Reed ordered. The remaining ships reversed, engines desperately trying to escape the range of that terrible weapon. As they retreated, the structure continued to pulse, the portal at its center widening. Through it, they caught glimpses of something moving, enormous shapes, deliberate, in their motion, approaching the threshold between dimensions. "We failed," Wilson whispered, watching the feed from the long-range sensors. "It's coming through." Reed refused to accept defeat. "If we can't destroy it directly, we change the battlefield." His eyes fixed on the navigational chart. "There's a mid-sized black hole 6 light minutes from here. If we can't destroy that thing, maybe we can trap it." The plan formed quickly. Using the ships as bait, they would lure the structure toward the black hole's gravitational well. Once it was caught, in the event horizon, not even its advanced technology could escape. "It's still following the Harvester's primary directive, to consume energy and matter," Wilson agreed. "If we present ourselves as targets, it should pursue." The remaining ships formed a line between the structure and the black hole, engines, flaring at maximum output, energy signatures like beacons in the darkness. As expected, the crystalline web began to move, following them with steady purpose. The chase was slow at first, then accelerated as the structure seemed to sense their intent. Tendrils extended outward, reaching for the fleeing ships. Another beam of void energy lashed out, narrowly missing the Resilience. "Hold course," Reed commanded as consoles sparked around him. "We need to get it deeper into the gravitational field." The black hole loomed ahead, visible only as an absence against the star field and the blue-shifted radiation of its accretion disk. Proximity alarms blared as the ships approached the point of no return, the boundary beyond which even their engines couldn't overcome the gravitational pull. "Prepare to execute emergency jump," Reed ordered. The maneuver was risky, using a short, faster-than-light jump to escape the gravity well at the last possible moment. Behind them, the crystalline structure continued its pursuit, seemingly unaware of the trap. As it crossed the critical threshold, the effects of the black hole's gravity became apparent. The perfect symmetry of the web began to distort, stretching toward the invisible center of gravity. "Now," Reed commanded. The 3 remaining ships activated their jump drives simultaneously, disappearing in flashes of controlled spatial distortion and reappearing a safe distance away. They watched as the massive structure fought against the inexorable pull of the black hole. Its filaments writhed and extended, seeking purchase against the fabric of space itself. The dark portal at its center pulsed erratically, as though something on the other side was trying desperately to pull it back. For several minutes, the outcome hung in balance. Then, slowly at first but with increasing speed, the crystalline web began to collapse inward, drawn toward the black hole's singularity. As it compressed, energy flared along its filaments, a last desperate attempt to escape. A final pulse of void energy erupted outward, missing the ships but creating a shockwave that buffeted them severely. Then the structure passed the event horizon and was gone, its light redshifting to nothing as it fell forever into the black hole's embrace. On the bridge of the Resilience, no one spoke for several moments. "Did we stop it?" someone finally asked. Wilson studied the readings from the portal's last moments. "I think so. The connection was severed when it crossed the event horizon. Whatever was trying to come through, it's cut off now." Reed didn't allow himself the luxury of relief. For how long? And are there other nodes like this one? Those questions remained unanswered as the battered ships turned and began the long journey back through the dark zone. News of their victory spread quickly once the strike team emerged from the dark zone. The destruction of the command node had immediate effects. Across the galaxy, harvesters became erratic, their attacks uncoordinated. Without central direction, they were still dangerous but no longer an existential threat. The Confederation Council called an emergency session, and for the first time in history, human representatives were invited to attend not as observers, but as honored allies. Admiral Reed and Dr. Wilson stood before the assembled delegates of 200 species, recounting their discovery and the narrow escape from something potentially worse than the harvesters. "You saved us all," Delegate Orlin acknowledged, his crystalline features catching the light of the Great Hall. "The Confederation owes humanity a debt we cannot easily repay." But beneath the gratitude, Reed sensed hesitation. The council members exchanged glances, their body language, diverse as it was across species, conveying a shared concern. Chancellor Voss, the Confederation's highest authority, finally voiced what many were thinking. "What you discovered in the Dark Zone, this portal to another dimension, these entities that control the harvesters, they will try again, won't they?" Reed met the Chancellor's gaze steadily. "In my judgment, yes. We closed one door. There may be others. Or they may find new ways to breach the barrier between our dimensions." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For millennia, the Confederation had known peace, its member species evolving in a relatively stable galaxy. The idea of an external threat of this magnitude was paradigm-shifting. Dr. Wilson stepped forward. "What we face is unlike anything in recorded history. The harvesters and whatever controls them represent a fundamental challenge to life in this galaxy. Meeting this threat will require something the Confederation has been reluctant to embrace: change." Her words sparked immediate debate. Some delegates argued for strengthening conventional defenses, others for attempting communication with the extra-dimensional entities. A few even suggested abandoning threatened regions of space, sacrificing outlying systems to protect the core worlds. Reed listened to the logical, measured proposals with growing frustration. Finally, he interrupted, his voice carrying across the chamber. "With respect, this cautious approach is exactly why you nearly lost everything," he said. "The threat we face doesn't respond to logic or diplomatic overtures. It doesn't care about your carefully ordered society or your 10,000-year plans. It consumes, it destroys, and it will keep coming." The council chamber erupted in a mixture of outrage and support. Chancellor Voss called for order, then turned to Reed. "What would you have us do, Admiral? Abandon the principles that have guided us for millennia?" "No," Reed replied. "I'm asking you to expand them, to recognize that in the face of extinction, Adaptation isn't just beneficial, it's necessary. Over the next 3 days, humans and Confederation representatives hammered out a new alliance. The Galactic Defense Initiative would combine Confederation resources with human ingenuity and tactical thinking. The quarantine around Earth would be lifted completely, and humans would be granted full membership in the Confederation. Most significantly, a new combined fleet would be established to patrol the Dark Zone and other potential entry points with both human and Confederation officers in command positions. The changes weren't universally popular. Several elder races threatened to withdraw from the Confederation rather than accept humans as equals. Others demanded restrictions on human expansion into Confederation space. President Williams addressed these concerns directly in the final session. "We understand your fear of us. For millennia, your species have evolved in environments that valued stability above all. Humanity evolved differently, in constant change, constant struggle. We are what we are because we had to be." He paused, looking around the chamber. "But consider this. The universe is not the stable, orderly place the Confederation has tried to make it. It is chaotic, dangerous, and filled with the unexpected. In such a universe, humanity's adaptability isn't a threat to your way of life. It's essential to its survival." When the final vote came, the alliance passed with a narrow majority. For the first time in its history, the Confederation would fundamentally change its approach to galactic security and development. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth with news of the historic agreement, Reed found himself approached by Chancellor Voss in a quiet corridor. "Your people fought for us when you had every reason not to," the Chancellor said. "That has not gone unnoticed." Reed inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Humans understand something about adversity, Chancellor. It reveals character, both the strengths and the weaknesses." "And what did this crisis reveal about the Confederation?" Voss asked quietly. Reed considered his words carefully. "That you built a civilization designed for peace so thoroughly that you forgot how to face conflict. There's no shame in that. It's a noble goal. But the galaxy doesn't reward nobility alone. And humanity? We're still learning who we are beyond Earth," Reed admitted. "But this crisis showed us something important, that our greatest strengths and our greatest flaws are often the same qualities, just viewed from different angles." As they parted ways, Reed couldn't help but feel that this was not an ending, but a beginning. The threat from beyond their dimension remained, waiting for another opportunity. The harvesters, though diminished, still posed a danger to outlying systems. But for the first time, humanity and the Confederation would face these challenges together: logic and intuition, caution and courage, ancient wisdom and adaptability united against the darkness between stars. 5 years passed. The alliance between humanity and the Confederation transformed both societies in ways few had predicted. Humanity gained access to technologies beyond their imagining, accelerating their development by centuries. Earth's environmental damage, the legacy of industrial ages, was gradually reversed with Confederation bioengineering. Human colonies expanded throughout Confederation space, bringing their unique perspectives to worlds that had known only one way of thinking for millennia. The Confederation in turn was revitalized by human unpredictability. Art, music, and literature flourished as species that had created within rigid frameworks for thousands of years were exposed to human creativity. Military doctrine evolved, combining the Confederation's technological precision with humanity's tactical flexibility. Admiral Reed, now Supreme Commander of the Combined Defense Force, stood on the observation deck of Sentinel Station, a massive installation orbiting the edge of the Dark Zone. Below him, ships from 24 species patrolled in formations that would have been unthinkable before the Alliance: organized chaos, adaptive and ever-changing. Dr. Wilson joined him, her hair now streaked with gray but her eyes as sharp as ever. "The new detection grid is online," she reported. "If anything tries to open a portal within 50 light-years, we'll know immediately." Reed nodded, studying the holographic display showing the network of sensors extending throughout the dark. "Sonar? And the research?" "Promising," Wilson replied. We've reverse-engineered enough harvester technology to understand their basic principles. The Confederation's scientists still can't believe some of their assumptions were wrong. That energy doesn't always follow their mathematical models when it interacts with extra-dimensional space. Reed smiled slightly. They're learning that the universe is messier than their equations. Their conversation was interrupted by a priority alert. A young officer, human, with the distinctive blue skin of a human-Tellurian hybrid, evidence of the increasing integration between species, approached with a datapad. "Commander, we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations in Sector 7, she reported. Pattern matches historical records of harvester activity, but with variations. Reed and Wilson exchanged glances. They'd been expecting this. Despite 5 years of peace, they had never believed the extra-dimensional threat was truly gone. "Activate Protocol Lighthouse," Reed ordered. Throughout the station, alerts sounded as personnel moved to battle stations. Across Confederation space, similar alerts would be triggering as the integrated defense network sprang to life. In the command center, representatives from 7 species worked in seamless coordination, a sight that would have been unimaginable before the Alliance. Tactical displays showed defense fleets converging on the threatened sector. "Energy signature is increasing," reported a Confederation officer. "Dimensional thinning detected. Something's trying to come through." Reed's Tankai voice was calm as he issued orders. The response wasn't panicked but methodical, the result of years of preparation and combined training. Ships moved into pre-planned formations, sensors focused on the disturbance. Within hours, a familiar sight appeared, the crystalline filaments of a command node attempting to form in normal space. But this time the Confederation and human forces were ready. Before the structure could fully materialize, specially designed weapons, combining Confederation precision technology with the human concept of electromagnetic pulse weapons, fired in coordinated succession. The nascent node shuddered, its formation disrupted at the quantum level. The dimensional rift wavered, started to collapse, then suddenly stabilized. "Something's forcing it open from the other side," Wilson observed, studying the readings. "More power than we've seen before." Through the rift, massive shadows moved. The same entities glimpsed years earlier, now clearly attempting to force their way through. The defenders fired again, pouring energy into the collapsing portal, but the breach held. Reed made a decision. Initiate Operation Firewall. The order activated humanity's contingency plan, a last resort developed in secret. From a nearby asteroid base, a ship unlike any other in the Confederation fleet emerged. It was small, barely large enough for a crew of 3, but its power signature dwarfed vessels 10 times its size. "What is that?" asked the Confederation liaison, staring at the readings. "Something we hoped never to use," Reed replied. "A dimensional inverter. It doesn't just close breaches, it seals them permanently by altering the quantum signature of our spacetime near the breach point." The implications were enormous. Such technology could potentially cut off entire regions of space from each other permanently. The Confederation would never have approved its development had they known. The small ship accelerated toward the rift, its human crew volunteering for what was likely a one-way mission. As it approached the dimensional breach, energy began to build in its core. Through the communications channel came the voice of Captain Maria Torres, sister of General Torres, who had stood with Reed when the first call for help arrived. "Approaching optimal position. Inverter at 90% charge." "You're clear to proceed, Captain," Reed confirmed, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "And thank you." "Just doing what humans do best, sir," Torres replied. "Adapting to survive. Inverter at full charge, initiating sequence." The small ship released a pulse of energy unlike anything seen before. Not destructive, but transformative. Where it touched the fabric of space-time, reality itself seemed to ripple and reconfigure. The dimensional rift writhed, its edges folding inward as the quantum structure around it changed at the most fundamental level. On the other side, the shadowy entities reacted with what could only be described as panic. Tendrils of darkness reached through the closing rift. grasping for purchase in normal space. But the inversion continued, inexorably sealing the breach. In the final moment before the rift closed completely, Captain Torres's ship was caught in the dimensional flux. It neither exploded nor disintegrated. It simply phased out of normal space, taking its brave crew to whatever lay beyond. The rift collapsed with a final pulse of energy that washed over the defensive fleet like a silent wave. When sensors cleared, nothing remained but empty space with a subtly altered quantum signature, a permanent barrier against future incursions. In the command center, humanity and Confederation stood united in solemn victory. The threat was contained, at least at this breach point, but at a heavy cost. Days later, a memorial service honored Captain Torres and her crew. Representatives from every Confederation species attended, a gesture that would have been unthinkable just a few years prior. Chancellor Voss addressed the gathered mourners. Today we honor those who gave everything to protect not just humanity, not just the Confederation, but all life in our galaxy. Their sacrifice embodies the best qualities of both our civilizations: courage, duty, and the willingness to act when action is needed. Reed stood at attention throughout the ceremony, his face impassive but his eyes betraying the weight of command. Later, as the gathering dispersed, Dr. Wilson found him staring out at the stars. "We'll need to find all potential breach points," he said without preamble. "Seal them before they try again." Wilson nodded. The Confederation scientists believe they can adapt the inverter technology to create a detection system. We might be able to identify vulnerable points before breaches even form. "They're learning from us," Reed observed with grim satisfaction. "And we from them," Wilson countered. "That's the point, isn't it? Neither of us had all the answers. Together we might." As they spoke, a communication arrived from Earth. The first deep space vessel built with combined human and Confederation technology was ready for launch. Its mission: to explore beyond the galaxy's edge, to seek knowledge rather than conquest. Reed studied the ship's specifications with a hint of wonder. It represented a future neither humans nor the Confederation could have achieved alone. The logic and patience of ancient species combined with the adaptability and intuition of humanity. "They called us in desperation," Reed said quietly. "But I think in the end we needed each other." In the vastness of space, the galaxy continued its eternal spiral. The threat from beyond dimensions remained, waiting perhaps for another opportunity. But for the first time in their history, the civilizations of the Milky Way faced the darkness not as separate species, but as a united front, tempered by crisis, strengthened by diversity, prepared for whatever might come. Humanity's greatest gift to the stars had not been their technology or their tactics, but something far more fundamental: the understanding that adaptation was not just a means of survival, but the very essence of life itself. The call of desperation had transformed into a chorus of determination, and the galaxy would never be the same.